Saddam Hussein in 22 minutes. Welcome to a journey through time and power, to a land where history and legacy intertwine with the echoes of a figure whose name resonates through the annals of modern history. In this episode, we delve into the life of Saddam Hussein, a man whose reign shaped the destiny of Iraq and influenced the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East. From the dusty streets of Tikrit to the grandeur of Baghdad, from the fiery conflict of the Iran-Iraq War to the tumultuous Gulf War, join us as we unravel the complex tapestry of Saddam's rule. Discover the man behind the myths, the leader behind the legend, and the legacy that continues to impact the world. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below as we explore the rise and fall of Saddam Hussein, a saga of power, conflict, and legacy. Hit that subscribe button and bell icon to not miss out on this captivating tale from the heart of Mesopotamia. Saddam Hussein's story begins in the scorching heat and dry winds of Tikrit, a town nestled along the Tigris River, where he was born in April 1937. This era in Iraq was marked by political turmoil and social unrest. Coming from a humble Bedouin family, Saddam's life was deeply intertwined with the nation's ongoing strife. Tragedy struck early in Saddam's life. His father abandoned the family before Saddam could even meet him, leaving his mother, Subha, to face the challenges of parenthood alone. Her hardships were compounded by the loss of her older son from a previous marriage. Saddam was born into a world already shadowed by grief and despair. Unable to care for him due to her overwhelming sorrow, Saddam's mother sent him to live with his maternal uncle, Khairallah Tulfa. Tulfa, a vocal opponent of British influence and a fervent nationalist, deeply influenced Saddam's early years. His uncle's strong opposition to imperialism and his advocacy for Arab nationalism planted the seeds of these ideologies in Saddam. Life was not easy for Saddam. Luxury was an alien concept. His family's simple rural life in Tikrit paradoxically nurtured his growing ambitions. It was here, in the harsh conditions of Tikrit, that Saddam's resilience and determination began to take shape. As a teenager, influenced by his uncle, Saddam became involved in political activism. At 20, he joined the covert world of underground resistance by becoming a member of the Arab Ba'ath Socialist Party. This marked the start of his journey through the complex landscape of political dissent and rebellion. Within the Arab Ba'ath Socialist Party, Saddam found a platform for his burgeoning political ambitions and a means to channel his passion for a unified Arab nation. His experiences of personal and collective suffering fueled his belief that gaining power was the only way to enact significant changes in a society plagued by divisions. In his early days with the Arab Ba'ath Socialist Party, Saddam Hussein was deeply involved in a whirlwind of revolutionary zeal and clandestine operations against the Iraqi government of that time. He and his comrades were driven by a vision of an Iraq free from foreign control, embodying Arab solidarity and nationalism. Their efforts to subvert imperialist influences were relentless, fueled by a shared dream for their nation's autonomy. However, their revolutionary path was fraught with danger. Saddam and his associates faced persecution, their underground activities thrusting them into a hazardous game of evasion with the authorities. Despite the risks, Saddam's commitment to the cause of rebellion remained unshaken. The allure of power was strong but not easily attainable, protected by formidable barriers. In a pivotal moment in 1959, a young Saddam participated in a risky plot to assassinate Abd al-Karim Qasim, the then ruler of Iraq, whose policies were seen as obstacles to their vision of a sovereign Arab state. The assassination attempt failed, leaving Saddam both physically injured and spiritually challenged. He fled to Syria, then to Egypt, seeking solace among fellow Ba'athists, yet his resolve and vision for Iraq remained clear. During his exile, Saddam stayed connected to Iraq's political scene through covert communications and secret meetings, continuously plotting for a change in power. His time in Cairo was not only a period of separation from his homeland, but also an opportunity for political and ideological growth. Surrounded by like-minded individuals, he immersed himself in discussions of revolution and liberation from foreign dominance. Saddam's focus never strayed from Iraq, and he eagerly awaited a turning point. This came in 1963 with a coup in Iraq, signaling a shift in power. The Ba'ath Party, briefly seizing control, beckoned Saddam back from Cairo. He promptly returned, ready to navigate the complex and ever-changing landscape of Iraqi politics. The initial foray of Saddam Hussein and his comrades into governance in Iraq was short-lived. Just 9 months after ascending to power, they were ousted in another coup, a harsh lesson in the complexity and fragility of political dominance. This tumultuous period taught Saddam critical lessons in trust and strategy. His vision for Iraq remained strong, but he recognized that realizing this vision would require cunning, meticulous planning, and sometimes brutal tactics. The struggle for power in Iraq was intense, playing out in secret political meetings and in the streets where ideological factions vied for influence. Saddam immersed himself in this struggle, strategically enhancing his position within the Ba'ath Party and patiently waiting for the right moment. 1968 marked a significant turning point in Iraqi history, and for Saddam personally. The Ba'ath Party regained control, but this time with a more calculated, deliberate, and authoritarian approach. Drawing from past experiences, Saddam and his allies ensured that their actions were well planned, their decisions precise, and potential threats carefully neutralized. Though President Ahmed Hassan al-Bakr, Saddam's cousin, was the ostensible leader, Saddam, as vice president and deputy chairman of the Revolutionary Command Council, wielded substantial power. His role, seemingly secondary, gave him extensive control over critical state functions, especially the security and intelligence sectors. Saddam's involvement in governance was deep and multifaceted, requiring him to skillfully manipulate the mechanisms of power to align with the Ba'ath Party's vision and interests. His influence extended across Iraq, and from his somewhat hidden position, he effectively orchestrated the workings of the government. He was acutely attuned to the dynamics of Iraq, sensing its societal undercurrents, its unrest, and its aspirations, and he used this awareness to maintain and consolidate his and the Ba'ath Party's grip on power. Saddam Hussein's rise to the pinnacle of power in Iraq was marked by a series of strategic and often ruthless maneuvers. While officially holding deputy positions, his influence was unmistakable to those aware of the inner workings of the government. He played a key role in initiating socio-economic reforms and agrarian policies, crafting a new vision for Iraq, all while systematically suppressing any form of dissent. Throughout the 1970s, Saddam's presence was felt in every aspect of the Iraqi state. Each strategic decision, alliance, and suppression of opposition bore his unmistakable influence. His path, though complex with alliances and tactical relationships, remained focused on creating an Iraq resilient to both external pressures and internal challenges. As time progressed, Saddam's control extended deeply into the fabric of Iraq's governance. Although President al-Bakr was the nominal head, it was Saddam who was recognized as the true center of power. The year 1979 marked a turning point in Saddam's consolidation of power. It was characterized by a series of deliberate actions and eliminations that strengthened his control over Iraq. President al-Bakr's resignation, due to age and the political climate, paved the way for Saddam to assume the presidency. Saddam's inauguration was a display of his firm grip on power and served as a stark warning to potential dissenters. The infamous purge of the Ba'ath Party leadership, executed with calculated cruelty, not only cemented his rule, but also sent a clear message throughout Iraq's power structures. Loyalty was essential, and any form of dissent would be met with zero tolerance. As Saddam Hussein entrenched himself in leadership, his attention turned to the east, focusing on Iran, where the Islamic Revolution had brought Ayatollah Khomeini to power. Perceiving ideological and territorial threats from this new Iran, Saddam made the strategic decision to engage militarily in 1980, initiating the Iran-Iraq War. This conflict, lasting nearly a decade, was a manifestation of Saddam's commitment to protect Iraq from external threats, while simultaneously suppressing any internal dissent. The Iran-Iraq War was a grueling conflict, symbolizing more than a territorial dispute. It was a clash of ideologies between two nations, steeped in mutual mistrust and animosity. The war was fought in harsh landscapes, with each side enduring heavy losses, both in terms of human life and resources. Throughout the war, various global powers covertly supported Iraq, not necessarily endorsing Saddam's motives, but driven by their own concerns over Iran's revolutionary zeal. The conflict became a complex interplay of international politics, with countries around the world calculating their involvement based on strategic interests. The war's end in 1988 left Iraq both weakened and assertive. While Iraq had managed to contain Iran's expansionist ambitions, the conflict had taken a severe toll on the country's people, economy, and international reputation. In the post-war period, Iraq's economic struggles and desire for regional dominance led Saddam to set his sights on Kuwait, rich in oil resources. This decision led to the invasion of Kuwait in 1990, a move interpreted by many as aggression, but seen by Saddam as a strategic necessity for economic stability and regional influence. The invasion brought Iraq into the global spotlight, triggering widespread international condemnation and military response, culminating in the Gulf War. This conflict saw Iraq pitted against a global coalition, isolating the nation and subjecting Baghdad to intense bombardment. The Gulf War was not just a physical conflict, but also a symbolic clash against the prevailing world order. The war underscored the complexities of global power dynamics. It was a battle between Iraq's unilateral actions and the collective response of the international community, intent on maintaining established geopolitical norms. The ceasefires of 1991 brought a deceptive calm, masking the lingering tensions and ongoing strife. Iraq, though resilient, was left deeply scarred by the war's devastation, economic sanctions, and international isolation, entering a period of profound struggle and hardship. Under Saddam Hussein's leadership, Iraq navigated through a period marked by severe international challenges and internal unrest. The Kurdish regions in the north became hotbeds of rebellion and foreign intervention, highlighting the complexities of maintaining national sovereignty under such conditions. The geopolitical landscape shifted significantly after Iraq's actions in Kuwait. The United States, with its growing interest in the Middle East, viewed Iraq through a prism of strategic and ideological considerations. Iraq faced sanctions, no-fly zones, and covert operations, all aiming to constrain and subvert its sovereignty. Despite these external pressures, Saddam's regime remained externally robust, while internally it dealt with dissent and economic hardships. Iraq's interaction with the international community during this period was characterized by a mix of resistance and calculated cooperation. The government complied to some extent with international demands and inspections, but Saddam's commitment to Iraq's sovereignty and interests was unwavering. From the Western perspective, particularly that of the United States, Saddam's regime was seen as part of the so-called axis of evil, a perceived threat that extended beyond Iraq's borders. However, Saddam viewed these accusations as hypocritical, coming from countries that, in his opinion, also engaged in aggressive and subversive acts globally. As the new millennium dawned, the geopolitical dynamics were subtly shifting, and the global discourse was increasingly dominated by themes of threat and conspiracy. From Baghdad, Saddam sensed the growing drumbeats of war, initially faint but steadily growing louder. Iraq's international relations were still overshadowed by its past actions, especially the invasion of Kuwait. However, it was the events of September 11, 2001, in the United States that significantly altered the international stage. Although Iraq had no involvement in the al-Qaeda terrorist attacks, the aftermath impacted the entire Middle East. In response to the attacks, the United States, led by President George W. Bush, launched a global war on terror. This campaign, ostensibly focused on eradicating terrorism, also provided a pretext for addressing other geopolitical and strategic interests. Iraq, with its rich history and vast oil reserves, found itself targeted in this new American initiative. The U.S. leveled serious accusations against Saddam's regime, including harboring weapons of mass destruction, supporting terrorism, and oppressing its own people. These allegations would soon lead to significant and lasting implications for Iraq and its leadership. In the early spring of 2003, the long-anticipated conflict began. The U.S.-led coalition launched Operation Iraqi Freedom, a military campaign aimed at overthrowing Saddam's regime. The operation commenced with a strategy of shock and awe, delivering a massive onslaught of firepower intended to quickly incapacitate Iraqi defenses and demoralize its leadership. As bombs lit up the Baghdad sky, casting eerie shadows among the smoke and flames, the scale of the impending conflict became starkly apparent. Coalition forces, mainly American and British troops equipped with advanced military technology, advanced towards Baghdad from the south. In the south, Basra became a focal point of early fighting. Iraqi forces, despite being outmatched in terms of technology and firepower, fought fiercely to defend their positions. The battles in and around Basra were intense and destructive, leaving the city heavily damaged. Despite the strong resistance put up by Iraqi soldiers, the coalition's advance towards Baghdad continued unabated. The superiority of the coalition's military capabilities was a daunting challenge for the Iraqi defense. The conflict, however, was not confined to the battlefield. It was also a war of narratives and perceptions. The coalition, led by the United States and the United Kingdom, framed their military action as a mission to liberate the Iraqi people from an oppressive regime. This portrayal was a critical aspect of their strategy, aiming to gain moral high ground and justify their intervention in the eyes of the international community. This narrative clashed with the perspective of Saddam's regime, which viewed the invasion as an unwarranted and aggressive violation of Iraqi sovereignty. The perception of the US-led invasion among Saddam Hussein's government, the Iraqi military, and many Iraqi citizens was starkly different from the narrative presented by the coalition forces. For them, this was an unwarranted invasion of their homeland, a place rich in history and culture. The advance on Baghdad, a city symbolizing Iraq's storied past and vibrant life, was seen as an assault on their sovereignty, legacy, and future. As coalition forces moved towards Baghdad, the city stood on the edge of a profound transformation. This was not just a physical battle, but also a clash of eras and ideologies, threatening to disrupt the deep-seated unity and identity of the Iraqi people. The declaration of the end of major combat operations by the US-led coalition in May 2003, marked by President George W. Bush's mission accomplished speech, signaled a new, complex chapter for Iraq. This period was characterized by instability, insurgency, and a nation in search of its new identity amidst the aftermath of conflict. In the wake of the invasion, the distinctions between ally and adversary, liberator and occupier became blurred. Iraq, with its rich history and potential, faced the daunting task of navigating through a landscape altered by occupation, internal strife, and the struggle to regain its sovereignty. In this turbulent period, the remnants of Saddam's regime diminished under the pressures of foreign occupation and internal conflict. The sounds of foreign troops in Baghdad's streets, the undercurrent of dissent among the population, and the covert meetings of former regime officials signified the secretive end of Saddam's rule. Saddam Hussein's absence from public view did not diminish the impact of his long-standing influence on Iraq. His legacy continued to resonate throughout the country's complex social and political fabric, marked by an intricate interplay of loyalty, fear, defiance, and ambition. The capture of Saddam in December 2003 near Tikrit, once seen as unassailable, became a significant symbol of his downfall and a turning point for Iraq's future. His capture and subsequent display to the world symbolized the end of his regime and was touted as a major victory for the coalition forces. However, the removal of Saddam from power did not extinguish the conflicts that simmered under the surface of occupied Iraq. The ensuing power vacuum became a battleground for various domestic and international entities vying for influence and control. The complex interrelations among Shia, Sunni, Kurds, Arabs, Islamists, secularists, and the influences of neighboring countries and occupying forces led to a multifaceted struggle that extended well beyond Saddam's rule. Saddam faced trial and execution, yet his legacy continued to influence Iraq's path. Executed in December 2006, his physical voice was silenced, but his impact lingered in the nation's ongoing challenges. Saddam's life and rule transcended simple moral and ethical judgments, leaving behind a legacy open to varied interpretations and evaluations. Perceptions of him as a tyrant, liberator, oppressor, leader, villain, or hero varied greatly, influenced by personal ideologies and viewpoints. Post-Saddam Iraq, emerging in the wake of his regime's collapse, faced a tumultuous journey marked by liberation, chaos, and ongoing conflict. This period reflected the inherent complexities and challenges of governance and coexistence in a country as diverse and rich in history as Iraq. As the immediate echoes of Saddam's reign faded into history, Iraq continued to evolve, its narrative forever shaped by its past triumphs and tragedies. The enduring tapestry of Iraq, woven through generations of love, loss, and struggle, persisted, forever flowing in the vast river of time. This historical continuum underscores the enduring nature of Iraq's heritage and the lasting impact of its historical figures, including Saddam Hussein, on its national identity and future trajectory.